What is good, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I'm going to be talking about the one and only NIO stock, what you should be looking after for the future. I'm also going to break down some very important pieces of information coming out from the global stage, from the PCE data to the Fed, that are super important for NIO, and I'm going to break down what NIO put on their Twitter page, which is still very bullish news. Now, before I start anything and say anything about NIO's share price and what's going on, I do have to mention a couple of things before starting. Firstly, I'm not a financial planner. Don't take any of this as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire NEO community as a whole. And the last things, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you're guaranteed up to 12 free stocks, each worth up to $2,000. The best part is, any of these 12 free stocks could be a free NEO share. It's a limited time offer. The offer ends in just one day. Check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. So something good about NEO is we were up about 1.22% for the day, but overall we're still very red compared to where we were just a couple of weeks ago. So NEO is still taking this big hit. We are still respecting a downtrend, and the question is, what's going to happen to NEO from this point? Well, one thing that's not the best for the markets is we're currently in a very fearful state. The market is extremely fearful right now. And on top of that, you have to remember that we have some good news and bad news. The bad news is the SPY has a big influence on the overall market. So does the NASDAQ and all these big ETFs. They do affect NEO heavily. And you can see this correlation between NEO and the SPY. The good news, though, is the fact that NEO is not going to like new lows as of right now compared to SPY. The SPY is at these new lows. It keeps dropping and dropping. NEO is holding up and showing some relative strength, but I do anticipate that that doesn't necessarily stop NEO from dropping more. So what I'm saying is NEO is not dropping to like new lows while SPY is. Instead, NEO is holding up a little bit better, but it still is influenced by SPY. So I'm hope that it like really made sense when I said that. So what does this mean for the markets? Well, there's one thing I don't like. All right, one thing I don't like, and that is the SPY right now. Excuse me. Um, when we look at the SPY, you will notice that this thing is continuing to make those lower lows. It's continuing to just drop and drop and drop over and over again. And what's a big issue is the fact that it recently broke below 360. That's a very strong support zone. We were holding that for so long, and we didn't just break the June lows, we're making new lows. And it's looking like the SPY is heading for more and more red as the days go on. Now, a lot of people would be anticipating some green for the month of October. And this is where things become very tricky because historically, during October's during midterm elections, we start to capitulate in October, then we start to get a push up near the end of October going into midterms. Now, I do believe it's very likely we could get a push up like this going into like mid to late October, but until then, right, the first week or two of October could still be kind of choppy and we could still come down and continue to drop from here. Why do I feel this way? Well, I have many reasons to actually think this. Firstly, there are lots of crazy things going on in the markets. Let me just quickly go over these like 5 articles super fast. So, economists are very, how should I say, they're very antsy right now about what's going on with the US recession. They're saying that the jobs data is not helping, and they're implying what the Fed has been telling us, and that's the fact that they want to be a lot more hawkish, and they do not like seeing jobs reports being like this strong right now. We need the market to slow down. We're going to need pain to bring down inflation. We're also seeing global situations going crazy. The UK pound, the British pound is losing so much value, and we're starting to see this kind of affect the US markets too. PCE came out. This is the inflationary measure that the Fed often prefers. It actually showed that inflation was higher than expected in August. Now, note that this data is manipulated, but it's still showing that it's not necessarily coming down as hard as people wanted it to be. Core inflation rose 4.9%. The market already priced this in, but it is something that's important to note. Now, also, we are starting to see a lot more tensions between Russia and Ukraine. It's still going on, and things are still crazy all over the world. With that said, guys, with the lockdowns also going on in China and all these crazy things, guys, I don't want to go into like too much detail about this, but my point is the Fed is incentivized to remain hawkish before the next FOMC meetings. So we could see the Fed continue to raise the rates even more, and the markets are starting to feel the pain because of that. Now, for NIO, we are dropping on lower volume, which is, I mean, we actually pushed up on lower on decent volume, but we did drop a little bit on lower volume on some days. Other days it was like really high volume, especially when NIO took those huge hits. So my point is, this is just a small relief rally. We're not pushing up on high volume, like extremely high volume. So NIO is not ready to truly reverse just yet, in my opinion. So we could get a reversal. I mean, it's possible, but my point is, we're not seeing the signs of it just yet. The shorts are still in control. I can even show you this right here. The shorts volume percentage is still going up for NIO. Those with short positions, the sellers, they're gaining the edge right now. Now, for SPY, what I'm noticing is we are starting to come down, but now I'm a little bit worried about these like bigger tech companies that could really affect it. So if you look at Tesla, for example, the setup does not look good. I'm sure you guys can already see this giant, what is it, like an inverse George W? I think that's what some people call it. Double top, big rejection coming down, big gap right here on Tesla. See this gap? It's looking like, despite AI day, it wants to fill that gap. And as a result, we're seeing SPY. I mean, it's just coming down over and over again. There are no true signs of a reversal yet. It just keeps making those new lows. As a result of all these bearish things that are pushing down the market, because we don't have the true sign of reversal, I can't say that NIO is going to reverse yet. It looks like it's continuing to make those new lows over the last like couple of months. We haven't seen NIO this low, and it's going to continue to drop, in my honest opinion. Now, I don't think NIO is going to make new lows for the year during this drop. I think that eventually it's going to get a big bounce. I already mentioned where I see it bouncing at. It looks like we're going to head for that 12 to 13 level. We're slowly getting closer. People heard me say that before, and they were not happy with that. I understand the frustration because NIO's fundamentals are strong, and companies with very strong fundamentals could still see big hits during times like these because the Fed is a lot more pivotal for the markets. So NIO, however, a couple of weeks ago we were at 22, then we were at 18, now we're back in the 15s, and it's looking like we're slowly going to head down a little bit more. Now, if we're truly set for the bounce, we have to see true confirmation of it. We're not seeing confirmation just yet. Look at the weekly candle on NIO. Does not look the best either. It looks like it's, like I said before, heading for that $13 level, in my honest opinion. Now, we're not super far from that. That's like the good thing because NIO already bled quite a bit, but the whole market may take a hit and actually influence NIO to actually do that. So as far as the zones go, if you see NIO come down to 15.5, this thing could drop below it. We actually did not hold 15.5 for too long. We bounced off like 15.21. Honestly, guys, 15 to 14.75 seems like another very key zone. Let me just highlight this real quick. Right here, I'm going to be watching this zone and also this 15 to 14.75 zone. Right here is where NIO can actually see somewhat some like choppy price action, some chop like around here, but it's looking more like if we get to the 14s, guys, it's going to be more and more likely that we get to the 13s and finally fill that gap. And that's what it seems like NIO is set to do. Now, if we're set for a true reversal and we're going to fill this gap first, I'd be very cautious if you were to play this and watch this. If NIO does push up and we break past like 16.5, 16.6, what if we fill the gap and then come down later on? That's also a possibility. It can happen super fast. Now, I don't want to guarantee that's going to happen, and that's the reason why I'm super cautious in this market despite everything that's going on. And that's why it's important to know what's going on with the Fed and everything like that, because there's still many catalysts out there that could really cause things to shift. With that said, my point is, I personally am not holding like calls or puts overnight. I'm going to have to wait and see what the charts tell us. We could go either way, but I still think downside is still a lot more likely considering how the big mega caps are starting to start dropping, and also the SPY and how these will affect NIO. So even if we get somewhat of a push up, I do anticipate more downside for maybe like the first week of October, followed by some capitulation and then a big bounce. Now, one thing that could be looked at as either a bullish or bearish indicator is the SPY right here on its options chain. You will notice something crazy. For next Friday, we have a 2.09 puts to call ratio. This means that the large majority of investors are loading up on puts and they're going heavy on the put side. So when this happens, there have been times where the market actually gets a reversal out of nowhere when people least expect it because the market makers take advantage of this. this could be a sign, but it's not a guarantee that that will happen. So what could happen next week is we continue to drop for another like a couple of days, and then we get a big bounce on like Wednesday or Thursday. It's very possible. I don't want to make that prediction though, because it's, it is what it is. You have to wait and see what the charts tell us, but it is something to keep in the back of our minds that we could get a bounce. But before we bounce, some more downside could come even starting next week. So it's better to be prepared for that and also do what you have to do to be ready, because we haven't shown signs of the bounce yet. So I can't just randomly predict it out of nowhere. The market looks like it's going to continue to drop for some time before we bounce. Whether the bounce comes mid next week or maybe in 2 weeks, we'll have to wait and see. All right, guys. But downside does seem more imminent for the overall market and NIO as well for the short term. Now, please note, just because stocks drop, it doesn't mean the company is a bad company. There could be amazing companies that still see these big drops during recessions, because it does affect their earnings to some degree, but it's also because of the overall market, what the Fed is doing, how it's affecting the big stance for buyers, how it really incentivizes shorts to really come in, and it brings fear into markets, causing a lot more selling pressure. And this will affect NIO, even though they are a very strong company despite that. And I say that because you have to remember, NIO has strong growth in China. They're growing every single day. They're expanding their business. They're going to be expanding all over Europe. They're actually announcing that their big launch into Berlin in just like a week from now. So I'm still very bullish. I'm still very excited for what the company has. So please remain calm, cool, and collected. Do what you have to do, and I'll see you guys in the next one. NIO to the moon, because the long-term future is still bright, and peace out.